So, today we'll start where we left off from before, which is Mem Vav Amud Aleph Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah. It's mamish the bottom, the second to the bottom line. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah. Is that correct? Is that what you have for that? I don't see Naftali. Have you in touch with him? Okay. We had in the Mishnah a Machlekes Rabbi Kiva and Ben Nanas. Remember, we're talking about the Karbanos of Shavuos. We spoke about the Shnei Kvasim, the two lambs that come together with that's not really, the two lambs that come together with the two loaves of bread. Two lambs were shlamim, right? We said that which ones were essential for the other ones. It was Machlekes Rabbi Akiva and Ben Nanas. Akiva said the main thing was the bread. Ben Nanas says the main thing was the meat, was the kvasim, right? Then we had Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says this whole machlokes is only if before the shechita. Once you have the shechita, then everyone holds that they're both ma'akev. We had a question from, what was it, Ula? A question from Ula that they asked in Eretz Yisrael, what about the tenufa? Will the tenufa make them attached the same way the shechita attaches them, called zika? Will it attach them? Okay, so that was, he left off with a teiku, and the teiku was what does Rabbi Yochanan hold? That was okay. Anyway, some sources for this. Now, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, "Imtim t'lay martinufa isazika." If you would say that the waving of the loaves of bread together with the lambs creates the zika, creates the attachment, that if one of them isn't there, then it's automatically invalid, right? Everything is invalid. So then what would happen if avad halechem, if the bread gets lost, the two loaves of bread get lost? That would be just like avdu kvasim. It would mean like the lambs got lost. In avdu kvasim, if the lambs gets lost after the tenufa, then that would be avad halechem, would be the same like avad halechem. Which would mean basically that you can't eat this, you can't eat that. The whole thing becomes invalid. You lose one because the tenufa creates the zika, and one without each one becomes essential. It's ma'akiv. However, imtim tzalaymar tenufa eno zika. If we say that the waving does not create this attachment, and it's only the shechita that does the shechita was done after the waving, right? Like the words of Rabbi Yochanan, then hevi lechem kvasim v'hunfu. Let's say you did the tenufa, right? It's not going to create the attachment. V'avad alechem, and then the bread gets lost. So nishkafer lech, hevi lechem acher. You could bring other bread. Okay. However, what about the new bread? Do you have to do tenufa on the new bread or not? Or do we say that tenufa was done already? In other words, is the tenufa, is the main tenufa on the lambs, which you did, and you just have to replace the bread, which is no problem. Or is the main tenufa on the bread, and you lost the bread, and now you have to do the bread that you're bringing now is the tenufa. So basically, what they need to create a new attachment. Now we're saying there is no attachment. The bread and the lambs are not attached by the tenufa. Question is, if the tenufa was done on the lambs, is that satisfactory now when you're bringing the new bread? Yeah, but the question is the tenufa essential for the bread, or is it only essential for the yeah? So, what would be avdu kvasim? Avdu kvasim, the Gemara says, Rabbi Yirmiyah says, leiti ba'ilach. If the lambs got lost, then I understand I could use this bread again and bring new lambs. I understand that, but there's no question that I would need to do tenufa on the new lambs. That's no shaila, because the pasuk says that it says you waved the lambs. However, kiti bailach, where's our question by abad alechem? Only when the bread gets lost, you have to redo it. Aliba de ben Nana slati bailach. Ben Nana said the main thing is the lamb, not the bread, right? According to Ben Nana, that's not a problem because the Amar Kvasim Mikir said the main thing is the lambs. Kiti bailach aliba de Rabbi Akiva. Question is according to Rabbi Akiva that said that the main thing is the bread. The Amar lechem mikir. What's going to be the din here? Kivan the lechem mikir by tenufa. Do we say that because the bread is the main thing and therefore this new bread that you're bringing never had the tenufa, so you need a new tenufa? Or maybe the matir. What's matir the bread? That everyone agreed that what's matir the bread would be the kvasim. If you have kvasim, it was an option that maybe the bread is matir itself, right? But if the kvasim are there, then of course the kvasim, the lambs, are there matir. They would permit the bread to be eaten. So the question here is since the kvasim already had the tenufa, so then you don't need it on a new tenufa on the bread. So the Gemara says take it. Okay, that's Rabbi Yirmiyah's question. The question is the new bread that you're bringing, would it require a second? Would it require tenufa on the new bread? Amalei Abaye l'Rava. Abaye and Rava have this conversation. Abaye says, "Ma'ishna shnei kvasim, the mekadshi lechem, uma'akvi." This in the Mishnah we said that there's a whole bunch of karbanos over here. There's karbanos that are mentioned in Parshas Emor. There's karbanos that are mentioned in Parshas Pinchas. The ones from Parshas Pinchas are clearly karban musaf. Those are we decided that they're separate. They're not the same karbanos. The ones in Parshas Pinchas are karban musaf, but the ones that are brought that are mentioned in Parshas Emor, and then it says that there's also two lambs and two breads. So we are only saying that the two lambs and the two breads are connected together. And if you're missing one, then it's ma'akav dador. What about the 7 lambs and the bull and the 2 rams? It says ma'ishna shnei kvasim de mekadshi lechem. What's the difference between these 2 karbanos of the lamb, these 2 lambs which are actually shlamim, that they consecrate the bread, ma'akri, and they also affect the validity of the bread, at least according to Ben Nanas, who says that the lambs affect the validity of the bread. Maishna shiva kvasim upar ve'elam. What's the difference between the 7 lambs, the bull and the ram, which also come? Now those were oilas; they're not shlamim, but nevertheless, why aren't they? The leimakachi lechem leimakvi. They don't affect the validity. Amarlei. So Rafa responds. He says, "Hayel b'husk guzel zebetnufa." Wow. Hayel b'husk guzel zebetnufa. Because when it came to the tenufa, you only did the tenufa. You only did the waving on the 2 lambs. You didn't do the waving on the 7 lambs and the bull. That would be difficult, actually. Stop a bull, but you didn't, or on the 2 rams. So the waving is what's affecting this. So the Gemara asks. So I guess it's Abaye is asking back. What about by the carbon taida? Carbon taida is Thanksgiving offering that also has a lamb, right? Also has a sheep or whatever it is, it's a shlamim, a peace offering that comes together with 40 loaves of bread. And over there we say, and do you do the waving over there? You don't do any waving. There's no waving. And nevertheless, it becomes consecrated. So we should say the same thing. Why are you making this up? That you know how bread gets attached to the animals. That if you lose this, then that. It's because it was waved together. So that's all. That's an all assumption because we see by the carbon taida that there's no waving, and nevertheless they're attached. Ella ketaida. Say no, it's different. You see, because rather what we're saying is it's exactly like the Taida. You know what's the attachment over here between the animals and the bread is not the waving, but it's the fact that it's shlamim, and this automatically excludes the oilas of the seven lambs and the bull. So that's why there's no attachment between them because they're not shlamim. Gemara says, "Mi dami, Hasam. How can you compare? How can you compare our lambs to the bread to the taida?" It says, "Hasam lekas v'chmachrin badei." Over there, all the only carbon that you had is the one shlamim. But by how do you know that those karbanas aren't attached? The kacha hani v'hani. Maybe they should all become consecrated together. This one should consecrate these, and this should consecrate that. You're comparing it to something that didn't have anything else there, and you're saying, oh, it's only the shlamim. You see by the taida it's a shlamim, but the taida doesn't have other karbanas. Over here we do have other karbanas, and maybe these karbanas are essential as well. The Mishnah didn't say so. The Mishnah said exactly the opposite. The Mishnah says El Nazir. We're looking to compare this to something. We're going to compare it to the El Nazir, the Riyam of the Nazir. Now the Riyam of the Nazir also has bread, but the Riyam of the Nazir also has other karbanas that come along. It says Ma El Nazir Afagav Dikaz Vachimachrini. Even though by the Nazir there are other karbanas there. Does it say what other karbanas are by the Nazir? There's an island chatas. What type of animals in it? There's the El Nazir was a shlamim, I think, but was eaten, right? So, just like by the El Nazir, even though there are other karbanas there, but shlamim hu de makachi, but it's only the shlamim, it's only the riyam that consecrates the bread. Midi achrina lo, the other karbanas, the chatas and the oila do not consecrate the bread. Bachanami, so too regarding the karban of shuas, the two lambs and the bread, leishna, they'll say that it's not going to be consecrate the bread. It says v'hasam, so there's v'hasam in there by the El Nazir minalan. Where do we know? How do we know that the El Nazir it's only the shlamim that consecrates the bread? It says the Tanya that we know from a brisa. It says v'sa'ayal yasezevach hashlam l'Hashem al salamatzis. Brisa quotes the pasuk. It says the riyam, the ayal, the riyam of the Nazir, you bring as a zevach hashlamim for Hashem on could mean together with on the salamatzis on the basket of matzahs. And this teaches us that the basket of bread, the bread basket, the loaves of bread come together with the ayal. It's dependent on the ayal. Therefore, if there's a problem with the shlamim, with the El Nazir, then the bread is also not consecrated. Okay. It's going to get into a big topic over here. We have a new brisa. According to one opinion, which is Rabbi Akiva. Akiva held that the bread was essential, the meat was not, the chassim was not essential. According to Rabbi Akiva, if the two loaves of bread are brought on their own, and you don't bring the chassim, going to Ben Nanas, this is an impossibility, because you can't have the bread without the. But according to Rabbi Akiva, it's possible to have the bread without the lambs. So shtei alechem abas v'fnei yunfu, you do the tenufa just on them, but to uber tzurasan. How do they translate to b'tzurasan? Means you let them get spoiled. What do they say? Their appearance must be changed. Okay, to b'tzurasan, which means that you leave them overnight. You let it become puzzle by staying overnight, and then v'yatzal beis shef, and then you burn it. So, what was our problem with them? It means it becomes possible. You see, let's take a look. Let's see. The Gemara explains this. Manafshach. What's going on over here? Ila chilasian. Are they allowed to be eaten? See, we didn't have the sheep here. We were thinking that according to Rabbi Akiva, the sheep are not ma'akiv the bread. So maybe you should be allowed to just bring the bread. So you just eat the bread. At what moment does the bread become mutter when you don't have the sheep? So if you have the sheep, then the shchita and then the zrika, that would allow the bread to, okay, we did the sacrifice, that's matir the bread they eat it. But what's going to be matir? What's going to be the event that's going to make the bread permissible? You just like walk in with bread, bagels. Let's go, guys. And then there's no event here. So what's matir? Can they be eaten? Here we're saying in the brisa that it's not eaten. You just leave it, and it stays overnight, and then you burn it, which is not the way that it's supposed to be. This carbon is brought. Manavshach ilach ilasian. If they could be eaten, lechlinu. So just eat them. And if you can't eat them because you didn't have the carbon there, so for whatever reason, even though Rabbi Kiva says you could bring it without the carbon, but they still can't be eaten. So then, so why don't you just burn it? Why do you have to leave it overnight to create another psul on it, and then say, oh, it's possible, we have to burn it. Well, it stayed overnight, it's possible.
Wouldn't it be a waste? Like just taking bread for spoil and then burn it?
Whatever the carbon,
carbon. The sheep, so it won't be counted as anything.
So then what do you do with it? If you eat it, then you can eat it. If you can't eat it, then what do you do with it? Burn it. Yeah, but that's bananas. We're talking about Rabbi Akiva, who says that the sheep is not Rabbi Akiva holds the sheep is not ma'akiv the bread.
Without the sheep,
so that's what we're asking. If without the sheep, can we eat the bread? We have the bread here. We said that you have to burn it. It says, why do you have to burn it? It says, why do you have to wait overnight and then burn it? If you're allowed to eat it, so eat it. And if you're not allowed to eat it, so burn it. Why do you have to make it puzzle first? That's the question. We create another psul and then burn it based on the other psul. So it says, Lama Lui Bertzura. So Amar Rabba. Rabba says, to explain this brisa, he says, Liyoilam lachileasim. This could go different ways. We're going to see like the different Amirayim are going to pull this different ways. Rabba says, really, you're allowed to eat the bread. However, we have a slight concern. The concern is, maybe next year we're going to have sheep. And we're going to have bread. We're going to have sheep. It's going to be all done correctly. And people are going to say, I remember last year, we ate the bread without the sheep. So therefore, could eat it now. And really, and they didn't realize last year they didn't have the sheep. If you have the sheep, then the sheep are what's matter it. But if you don't have the sheep, then it's mutter on its own. But people are going to think that last year it was mutter on its own without finishing the carbon of the sheep, and they were eating it already. They remembered from last year that this was good. This was the bread was good. They ate it right away. So, and therefore they're going to think that inushayu nafshayu. But it's not true because now that we have the sheep are going to be matas. Therefore, we wanted to make it consistent, and even though you're allowed to eat the breads without the sheep when you don't have the sheep, but we want to make it consistent every single year. So even when you don't have the breads there, you don't eat it until you have the sheep, which in this case you don't have the sheep, so therefore you have to burn it.
They say like to make it possible for a second time, so that means it was possible the first time. Like they said to leave it overnight, so it could be second possible.
Yeah.
Does it have proof that it wouldn't fit?
Yeah, so the term second time is not in the text. That's just in the lingo of the translator. He's saying invalidated a second time, meaning that there may have been a prior invalidation with no sheep here. Let's invalidate a second time, just to be sure. And now we got it. Okay, that's what's going on. They put in the term second time, but you can't be medayek. Oh, obviously it was possible the first time. No, It wasn't puzzle at all. It's not puzzle, you could eat it. Only thing is, we wanted to make it consistent every single year so that in a year that they have the sheep, they won't make this mistake. So in the year when they don't have the sheep, we said not to eat. You can't burn it right away because it's a carbon. So the only way you can burn it is to let it become puzzle by leaving it overnight and then you burn it.
This sounds like a person who wants to do an Avera. I mean, you can't, it's one thing when you have people because you happen to be thinking that's one thing where you have Lena because you accidentally know. Here you purposely leave it open. Since one can we purposely do something?
We did this because there's the laws of taking a sacrifice and destroying it is strict. So that the only way you can do it is to let it become puzzle, and then you can destroy it.
So it's specific for this.
Specifically, yeah. But we do this also. If you have bread, you're not supposed to throw out bread. So you leave it till it becomes moldy, and then you throw it out. So.
Yeah, but there's no Avera and Shiva that you just leave it. I mean, half the time you open up your fridge and you find out stuff that's been there.
Right. So here we have this bread. We can't. We're not going to eat it now because don't want. Rabba says there's a gzeira, right? Next year or whatever. So we can't. We're not going to burn it because it's cut. So we leave it overnight. It becomes puzzle. It's a puzzle. We can burn it. Okay. I'm a Rabba. Rabba says, "Mina minala." How do I know that really the main thing over here with this bread, really the halach should be that you can eat it? The only thing is, we're not going to do that because of a gzeira. So the Tanan started in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, this would be Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Loi, Hayed ben Bukhri b'Yavna. Ben Bukhri, the Rambam has a different girsa, Ben Kufri. He testified in Yavna that Kol Kayin Shashaykel, we've had this Gemara in the past, Kol Kayin Shashaykel in a Chayta. Says, even though when it comes to the Machzas HaShekel, it says that anyone that goes through Kol Ha'Iver Al Pekudim, anyone that was counted to go to battle from 20 and up, they give the Machzas HaShekel, right? However, this is week's Parsha. However, a Kayin is allowed to. So it excludes the Kayin, but a Kayin is allowed to. If he wants to give the shekel, it's not a problem. Amalai Rabbi Yechim Zaka says exactly the opposite. Like Yala Kol Kayin She'ina Shekel Chayte, the Kayin has to. Why it says Kol Ha'Iver, anyone that's counted. We said, I saw in the comment over here in the Shita Mekubetzes, it says Kol Ha'Iver. It's not Ala Pekudim. Anyone, Kol Ha'Iver Al Pekudim means anyone that went through the census. He says Kol Ha'Iver Bayam. I don't know if the commentators are quoting this. If they are, anyone that went through the sea.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the Kainim went through the sea. I see that in the. You have a Machzas HaShekel, Daniel Yud Aleph. This is my Gemara. I don't know if all the number footnotes are the same in every Gemara. Okay. Anyway. So what about so how come the Kainim don't always do it? They don't do it. The Kainim have their own reason why they're not doing it, and they explain it like this. It says like this. It says that any mincha of a kayan should not be eaten, should be entirely burnt. Okay. Since the breads that are brought by the lechem apanim, the showbread, which was brought every week, which was eaten, and also the shtei alechem, the bread that's brought on Shavuos, is also eaten. Problem is, if the kohanim are going to contribute to the machzas hashekel, then the machzas hashekel is what supports, is what's used to purchase the flour to get this, and it's going to come out that the Kayanim are participating in this. The rule is that a mincha of a Kayan is not allowed to be eaten, won't be allowed to eat the lechem apanim and the shtei alechem. So they say, how could it be eaten? Must be that we're not supposed to be giving from the Maseches shekel. If we would be contributing, we would be ruining those karbanos. That's why they don't give. Now, 1 second. It's like a middle. What do you want us to add to this?
They said that the purpose of this verse is that to show that only people over 20 were
People
negative.
over 20. You're right. Only people over 20. Yeah. So we read it into Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. We read it into Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai differently than anyone then. Yeah. Okay, it would always be over 20. Question is if it's anyone that went through the census. That's the question. Okay, so when you said over here that the 2 loaves of bread, they're not they're supposed to be eaten, but they're not going to get eaten if the Kayan brought them. It says 1 second. If we say that we have the lambs, and we also have the shtei alechem. It says, what does the Kayan do if he's bringing a carbon taida? If he went over the sea, or was sick, or he got better, went over, right? What is he going to do? He's going to bring a carbon taida. He brings the sheep together with the 40 loaves of bread. You're not going to eat those 40 loaves of bread. You're going to eat it. Why? Because when it comes together with the carbon, it's not considered a mincha. Elalav b'bayis. It must mean that we're talking about where the kayanim are darshaning this pasuk according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. They're darshaning this pasuk to their own benefit. We're talking about a carbon, the shtei alechem, that's coming on its own without the animals, and that's why they're claiming that this would be a mincha that's not going to get eaten, and it's supposed to get eaten. So that's why they're not going to give the Maseches shekel. Uktani, and their claim is, how could they eat it? This is Rabba's proof that the shtei alechem that come on their own, according to Rabbi Akiva, that says that they come on their own. So that it's really supposed to be eaten. So why wouldn't we eat it? That's only because of the gezerah that Rabba told us that maybe 1 year they're going to have the thing, and they're going to say that last year, so we don't eat it. But really, it's supposed to be eaten.
Can I ask a question?
Amalei Abaya says, yeah.
Quick question. Before we had Rabbeim, Konam, all these people that would be teaching Tershtacha, and it can be Israel, wasn't it the Kohanim that were the teachers? So can we show from this? Because normally it's kind of chutzpah where the Kohanim sitting down all of a sudden they're asking in Gemara kind of stuff. Or can we deduce from this that this is like before the Tanaim and Amorim, you see the Kohanim even were going to figure out exactly what would be allowed or not?
I'm not sure. I understand what you're asking.
It's just a strange situation.
Yeah. I don't know. The situation is strange because Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai isn't telling us. He's telling us what he holds, and he's telling us that the Kayanim have their own opinion. He's not telling us that what they're doing is wrong or what we have to tell them. We should influence them. He's not saying. He's actually explaining their opinion. Right?
All right.
So it's okay. So this is where we're holding right now, where Rabbah says that the breads that come alone are actually meant to be eaten. We just don't for a technical reason, for a gezerah reason. Amalei Abaya says, the whole raya that you brought was from a carbon taida. You said that the carbon taida, if when a kohen brings a carbon taida, they eat the bread. So the same thing over here. What's the issue if the carbon is there? We should eat the bread also. With the kakashalach mitayda v'lachma, you had a question about a taida and the lachma and the bread of the taida. Lachmi taida le'ikru mincha. That's the comparison was so off. You're saying how could you eat if it comes together with the animals? Then how could it be eaten? If it comes together with the animals, then we're going to eat it anyway because by carbon taida we eat it anyway. Come together, you're missing the point. By the carbon taida, it's eaten not because it comes together with the animals. It's eaten even if a kohen brings it, is because it never calls it a mincha. However, By us, shtei alechem ikram mincha. Remember by krivchem mincha chadash Hashem, and you have to look back to the pasuk. Kol minchas koyin kol tiyah. A mincha of a koyin is burnt. The taida isn't a mincha. This is a mincha. So if a koyin would participate, it won't be eaten. There's no connection to the taida. The way Rabbah was proving that it must be that the breads are eaten without the animal is because we need to explain the logic of the koyanim that these breads wouldn't be eaten if they would contribute to machzas shekel, because it would mean it would belong to them, and anything that's coming from a kohen, a mincha, isn't eaten. So it must be that these need to be eaten, and we're looking for a case where they need to be eaten, and that would be problematic. So we said that they're coming alone. Abaye is saying that has nothing to do with coming alone. They're coming together with the lambs. Okay, we had a question before that mimanavshach, talking about the breads that come alone. According to Rabbi Akiva, it's possible for the bread to come alone, not like bananas. It says that the sheep can come alone without the bread. Akiva holds the bread can come alone without the sheep. Carbs. The question is, what we said, what you do is you have to leave it overnight and then you burn it. So we said, why do you have to leave it overnight and burn it? Just either you eat it, or if it's puzzle, then just burn it. But you have to leave it overnight to create a second psul and then burn it. So the first answer was actually it's supposed to be eaten. The reason why we're leaving it overnight is because it's not really puzzle, it's just a gzeira. So for the gzeira, we satisfy that by leaving it overnight. Now we're going to give another teretz. Rabbi Yosef, yeah.
Is it, if it's not complete, changing the name of the offering? Is that what happened? Like if you bring the bread without it changes the name?
No, doesn't change that. No, Rabbah was saying that the Kayanim don't want to interfere with the eating of the 2 loaves of bread. That's why they're not giving the shkalim. Okay? Because if they would give the shkalim, then you wouldn't be allowed to eat it. Question is, Rabbah proposed this question, which he then has his answer. He says, what's going on by a carbon taida? When a kayan brings a carbon taida, it comes along with 40 loaves of bread. They don't eat the loaves of bread. So Rabbah said that when it comes with a taida, so it's because it's coming together with the animal, so that's why it's eaten. So over here also, even if they're contributing, but it's coming with an animal, that's why it's going to be eaten. So they could still contribute. So when were the Kayanim claiming that they can't contribute? Out of the concern that maybe it's going to be brought alone without the animal. And then it's not going to be eaten. And really, it's supposed to be eaten. That's Rabba's proof that it's supposed to be eaten. Comes along Rabbi Yosef, was it? Or Abaye? Abaye asked the Rabbah. Abaye says that you're confusing things. You're mixing these things up. It has nothing to do with coming along with the animal. It has to do with if it's called a carbon mincha or not. The taida was never called a carbon mincha, but the shtei alechem is called a carbon mincha, so it's not going to, even if it's coming together with it. In other words, there's no proof from this that coming alone is still eaten. That's what Abaye tells him. Rabbi Yosef says, Loilam l'sreifasi. Actually, the truth is that when the breads come alone, according to Rabbi Akiva, you can't eat them. Akiva says you bring it, but you don't eat it. But what do? You just burn it. Behind the time of the leiser finan, so why don't you burn it immediately? He said you have to wait overnight, let it spoil, and then you burn it tomorrow. He says, oh no, we didn't mean you let it spoil. That wasn't our point. Main point was Bishain Sarfin Kat should be to not let it burn invalidated kachim on Yom Tov.
Wow. Yeah. They take the bread alone. What good does that do? The offering is not complete according to everyone.
No, according to bananas, it's not complete. According to Rabbi Akiva, it is complete. You can't eat it. But this it's considered like the sacrifice was brought. The shtei alechem were brought alone. That's what Rabbi Akiva would say. Only thing is, it can't be eaten. So why don't they burn it right away? If it's supposed to be burnt, he says, because you can't burn on Yom Tov. Amalei Abaye. Abaye has a question on Rabbi Yosef as well. It says, Midami Hasam. When it comes to regular karbanos which are not burnt, we're talking about because maybe it became puzzle, it became tamei, or whatever. It was left overnight from the previous night. So lav mitzvasim bekach. The mitzvah is not to burn it. just something happened and it became possible, and now you want to burn it. So you see that you can't do on Yom Tov. What do you do on Yom Tov? Only things that are necessary for food or whatever things are obligations of that day. Here, you don't have an obligation to burn it today. It's supposed to be burnt, but doesn't have to be. But over here, what do you do with the bread when there's no, the mitzvah is, you bring the bread, and what do? You burn it. So let's refinu. What do you do with the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur? They're also, the blood is brought inside and they're burnt outside the temple. So you would burn this as well. If that's the obligation, then that's what you do on Yom Tov. The comparison is not a good comparison, Abaya is saying. You're saying that you can't burn kachim on Yom Tov. That's kachim, that some invalidation, side invalidation occurred. We say you don't burn it on Yom Tov. Here, but this is the way it's offered when it comes alone. Alam Rav Yosef says, really, you're right. Okay, you could burn it on Yom Tov. But we don't burn it right away because maybe we could still find loaves of bread, not loaves of bread, so maybe we could still find sheep. Why? How come they're not bringing the sheep? There are no sheep available. Let's say someone says, "Oh, I have a sheep. They can bring the sheep." And later on that day, they'll bring the sheep. They'll offer the sheep. Then you'll be able to eat the bread. So they don't burn it right away. They wait till tomorrow. I can understand that they're going to want to wait until the afternoon when they could still bring the sacrifices. But after the afternoon, then they should already burn it. They don't have to wait till tomorrow. They could already burn it anytime when they can't bring the sacrifices anymore. The Gemara's answers, "My tuber tzurasan." So what does it mean that you have to wait till it spoils? Nami diktani tzurasakravasan. We don't actually mean until the morning. We mean until you can't offer the sacrifices anymore. So it just means later that day, that evening, they could already burn it. Rava gives his pshat. Rava says, really, the 2 loaves of bread that are brought alone, like according to Rabbi Akiva, is lachila asyan. Actually, you meant to eat it, just like Rabba said. They made it easy on us to remember. Rava and Rabba hold the same. However, why don't we burn it? Gzeira mishum de Rabba. It's exactly like Rabba. Rabba says that there's a gzeira, but not exactly for the same reason. Mikra. Rabba says there's actually a pasuk that supports this. Rabba says, where do I know this from? From your dwelling places, you will bring the bread of waving, the first offering to Hashem. That means that there's a comparison between the 2 loaves of bread to bikurim. Ma bikurim b'fnei atzman, afshtei alechem b'fnei atzman. Just like the bikurim are brought on their own, there's no sacrifice that comes along with the bikurim. You just bring the first fruits. So too, the breads could come on their own, without the sacrifice. It says, Mina, and also now we're going to learn something else. Ma bikurim lachila, afshtei alechem nami lachila. Just like the bikurim is eaten, so too the breads are eaten. Because we have a comparison in the Torah, bikurim to the breads. The bikurim come on their own, so too the breads can come on their own. Bikurim are eaten, so too this is eaten. That's why don't we eat it? They say, well, Rabbah says there's a concern that maybe next year they're going to think that you can eat it without slaughtering the sheep, and they're going to have the lamb, the lamb. They'll have, and that's going to be a problem. If you have the lamb, you have to wait for the lamb to be slaughtered and sprinkled. So what's he saying different than Rabbah? Rabbah had his source from this complication with the Kohanim giving their machzas shekel. And they said, if we're going to give it, then it's not going to be eaten. Obviously, it's going to be eaten. Obviously, it's supposed to be eaten. Rabbah says, I have my source from a comparison to Bikurim. Okay.
Reform doesn't need a lamb.
See? That's our point. Just like the Bikurim don't need a lamb, so too, the Shtei Alechem don't need a lamb. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's no zika.
If there was a lamb and they did the shechita, then there would be a zika. If there was a lamb and they did the tenufa, then we don't know if there's a zika. Over here, there's no lamb. So what do you do with the breads according to Rabbi Akiva?
Okay.
Yeah. Taner Rabbanan, yeah, it was starting a bryce on top of Mem Zayin. Kipsi Atzeres. lambs of the of Shavuos, ein mekadshim es alechem ela b'shchita. They consecrate the loaves of bread with the slaughtering of the lambs. Of course, nothing is simple. Everything gets a little complication. Ketzad, how does this work? Shachtan l'shman v'zarktam l'shman. If you did the shchita properly and then you did the zrika properly, kadosh alechem, all good. Eat the bread. Shachtan shlei l'shman, but let's say you slaughtered it wrong. V'zarktam shlei l'shman, and you sprinkled it wrong with the wrong intention. So then, like kadosh alechem, then it's no good. Shachtan l'shman v'zarktam shlei l'shman. What happens if you did the shchita properly, right, but you didn't do the zrika properly? What happens to the bread? So it's a machlekes. Rebbe says, Alechem Kaddish Ve'ena Kaddish. The bread is holy, but it's also not holy. We have to see what that means. Wait for the Gemara. Divrei Rebbe. That's what Rebbe says. Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon, Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon says, it's nothing. Until you have the Zrika as well, it's nothing. Taisvus over here, it's a very interesting question. That the Gemara says that Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon holds like his father, Reb Shimon, that says that anything that could be sprinkled is kizarik dami. If you could sprinkle the blood, it's like it's sprinkled. Okay. That being the case, so immediately when after the shechita, when you catch the blood, so it says anything that's eligible to be sprinkled. So it's as if it's sprinkled. If it's not sprinkled, it's good enough, right? Because you could have. The potential is enough. If that's the case, so then it's immediately kaddish. Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon Bayas is telling me it's not kaddish because when you sprinkled it, you didn't have right intention, and if you don't sprinkle with right, but it was kaddish even before you sprinkled it because it had potential. It's already kaddish. Right? Taisus answers, the Riva answers. He says, if the blood would have spilt, then we would have said you're right, it's kosher. But when you sprinkle it with the wrong intention, then you mess it up. Right? If you didn't do it, you were fine. But if you do it, you have to do it right. That's what he's saying. Okay. My time of the Rebbe. What's the reason for Rebbe? Rebbe said before we even understand what he said. He said, "What's the reason why he says it's kadesh ve'ena kadesh?" It says the ksiv. It says regarding the nazir's riyam that we spoke about before. It's a shlamim. The lamb you bring together with the loaves. L'meimra. Shechita Mekadsha. It says Yasa. It says you do it. What does it mean? I'm sorry. The Yasa is going to teach me something else. It says Zebach. The Zebach. Zebach means to slaughter. So that means that's what makes the breads holy. It's the slaughtering. Zebach. Zebach means to slaughter. Zebach Hashlam. So, and we're going to learn from that the same thing should apply to us. That the lambs are going to be, the slaughtering of the lambs will make the bread holy. Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon, what's his reason? It says Yasa. You have to do it. To do it means you have to do everything. Yasa kolas yaseh, which includes the sprinkling. For Rabbi Nami Yaksiv Yasa, what does Rabbi do? It also says Yasa. Yasa must mean it should be done, right? Iksiv Zebach Yasa, Rabbi says like this. If it would say that the slaughtering should be done, that would mean that you have to slaughter it, and you also have to do something else. Kid the kamret, like that would be like Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon was learning. But Hash the Ksiv Yasa Zebach, over here it says that it should be done, a sacrifice. It says Bamei Yasa. How do you do how do you do it? Bizricha. So the sacrifice itself, the slaughtering, the knife, slaughtering of the animal itself consecrates the bread. Elazar Bar Shimon, Ksiv Zebach. What does Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon do? It says slaughtering. Slaughtering tells me that the slaughtering makes it holy. That we would ignore the sprinkling. It says, that's teaching me something else. Rabbi Yechanan says that the bread already has to be there at the time of the slaughtering. But if you didn't have the bread at the time of shechita, you only got the bread later, then it won't consecrate the bread. Okay. So my kaddish ve'ena kaddish. Now we have to explain what was Rebbe saying when he said that it's holy and it's also not holy. Abaye amar kaddish ve'ena gomer. Abaye says it's holy, but it's not complete. Okay, well, like what did he help us with? That's what we thought before. Something is not complete. We'll see in the Gemara. We'll see. The Gemara's going to see. Rava Amar Kaddish vein and Nitter. Rava says that it's Kaddish, but the Kainim can't eat it. My Beinayu, what's the difference between Abai and Rava? The Kabinayu lemitvas b'dyayin. If you want to redeem it, can you redeem it or not? Is it holy enough that if you take money and you exchange it, that the bread will become not holy? So there's a little complication here because there's different gersais in this Gemara. Let's just read it. What it says. Rashi says this gersa that you probably have long notes on this. This could go different ways. This could go both options. Labaya leitafes one interpretation is according to Abaya, the bread does not go out to become mundane, and the money that was used does not become consecrated. The Rava tafes b'dyayin. According to Rava would say that the bread does go out, and the money does become holy. Okay, and you could say this also the other way. You could also say labaya tafes b'dyayin, that according to Abaya it does go out, it does leave it and come mundane, and according to Rava the other depends on the gersa. Bishleim Rava hana dikabein Rabbi Rabbi Bar Shimon. According to Rava, that says that it's tafes b'dyayin. Now we can understand that there's a difference between Rabbi and Rabbi Bar Shimon, because Rabbi would say that it's tafes b'dyayin. Rabbi says that it's kaddish ve'ena kaddish. That means it's all good. The shechita was done, but not the zrika properly, right? So we'd say that it's considered consecrated enough that you could actually redeem it. And according to Rabbi Bar Shimon, it's not. But according to Baya, that says that it's late tafes b'dyayin, that there's no difference over here. So what's the difference between Rabbi and Rabbi Bar Shimon? Both of them are going to say that the bread is not holy. The Gemara says it could be nayo l'fsuli b'yaitze. Does it become pasul if it's taken outside of the courtyard? Does it become pasul? According to Rebbe, it would, and according to Rabbi Bar Shimon, it won't. He says that because the blood wasn't sprinkled properly, so the bread isn't consecrated at all. So even if it's taken out, it doesn't become pasul like that. Okay, let's leave it over here. It's about 2/3 down the page. Right? Have a good day, everyone.